Don't look away. In the underworld of Chicago, one mistake gets you buried. Dante Moretti, known as the Surgeon for his cold precision, never made mistakes. He checked his corners. He trusted no one. But on a freezing Tuesday night, his life didn't depend on his gun or his guards. It depended on a 7-year-old girl in a ragged coat tugging on his cashmere sleeve. Her 6 words, "There's something under your car," didn't just save his life. They unraveled a 20-year-old lie that would bring the entire Mafia commission to its knees. What he found under that chassis wasn't just a bomb. It was a ghost from his past. The rain in Chicago doesn't wash things clean. It just makes the grime slicker. Dante Moretti stood under the awning of Le Papillon, a French bistro that served as neutral ground for the families. He buttoned his coat, a charcoal bespoke piece that cost more than most people's cars, and scanned the street. At 42, Dante wasn't just a boss. He was an institution. They called him the Surgeon, not because he had a medical degree, but because when he cut out the infection entirely, leaving the healthy tissue untouched. He was precise. He was emotionless. And tonight, he was tired. The meeting with the Calabrese outfit had been tedious. Arguments over shipping lanes and union contracts. Dante just wanted to get back to his penthouse in the Gold Coast, pour a glass of neat bourbon, and sit in silence. "Bring the car around, Russo," Dante murmured into his lapel mic. "Copy, boss. 2 minutes," came the crackled reply of his head of security, Dominic Russo. Dante lit a cigarette, the flame illuminating the sharp angles of his face, the scar running through his left eyebrow, the eyes that were the color of freezing water. The street was largely empty, save for the rhythmic swish of tires on wet asphalt and the distant wail of a siren. That was when he felt the tug. It was so faint he almost dismissed it as the wind catching his coat. But then it happened again, harder, more insistent. Dante's hand moved instinctively to the Glock 19, holstered beneath his jacket. He spun around, expecting an assassin, a knife, a threat. Instead, he found himself looking down at a tangled mess of wet blonde hair and oversized clothes. It was a girl. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old. She was shivering violently, her sneakers soaked through, clutching a dirty stuffed rabbit that had seen better decades, let alone days. Her eyes, wide and terrified, were fixed on him. Dante's hand relaxed, but he didn't lower his guard. Assassins came in all shapes. "Get lost, kid," he said, his voice a low growl. "This isn't a corner for begging." The girl didn't flinch. She didn't ask for money. She stepped closer, invading the personal space that usually resulted in broken bones for grown men. "Mister," she whispered, her voice trembling against the roar of the city rain. Dante exhaled smoke, annoyed. "Where are your parents?" "You have to look," she insisted, pointing a shaking finger toward the curb where Russo was pulling up in the armored black SUV. The massive vehicle idled, the headlights cutting through the gloom. "Look at what?" Dante snapped. He nodded to Russo, who was stepping out of the driver's seat to open the rear door. The girl grabbed his hand. Her fingers were ice cold. The contact sent a jolt through Dante. He hadn't been touched like that, with such desperate innocence, in years. "There's something under your car," she warned. "I saw the bad man put it there." The world seemed to stop. Dante Moretti froze. In his line of work, paranoia was a survival trait. But kids didn't play these games. If a rival wanted him dead, they didn't send warnings. Russo was holding the door open. "Boss, we gotta move. We're exposed out here." Dante looked at the open door. The warm leather interior beckoned. If he got in, he'd be home in 20 minutes. If the girl was lying, he'd look like a fool checking for boogeymen. But the look in her eyes, It wasn't a prank. It was pure, unadulterated fear. Dante held up a hand to Russo. "Hold it!" "Boss? Back away from the vehicle, Dom. Now!" Dante's voice shifted from annoyed to commanding. The surgeon was at work. Russo, a veteran of street wars, didn't question the tone. He stepped back, hand hovering near his waist. Dante looked down at the girl. What did the man look like? "He had a spider on his neck," she whispered. "A tattoo. He crawled under when you were inside eating." Dante's blood ran cold. A spider tattoo. That was specific. Too specific. That was the mark of the Vipers, a low-level street gang that dealt in meth and desperation. They were bottom feeders. They wouldn't dare touch a made man unless they were paid a fortune by someone much higher up. "Stay here," Dante ordered the girl. He stripped off his expensive coat and tossed it onto the wet pavement without a second thought. He rolled up his sleeves. "Boss, let me check," Russo interjected, stepping forward. "No," Dante said sharply. "If this blows, it's on me. Back the men up, 50 feet, now." Dante dropped to his knees on the freezing sidewalk. The water soaked instantly into his tailored trousers. He ignored it. He lowered his head, pressing his cheek against the cold asphalt, and peered into the darkness beneath the massive chassis of the SUV. He expected to see a bundle of C4. He expected a magnetic limpet mine. He expected the telltale blinking red light of a mercury switch. What he saw made his breath catch in his throat. It wasn't a bomb. Strapped to the rear axle with heavy-duty zip ties was a small, black, waterproof Pelican case. But it wasn't the case that stunned him. It was what was taped to the outside of the case. It was a photograph. Dante squinted, pulling a small pen light from his pocket and shining it under the carriage. The photo was old, faded. The edges were curling from the dampness. It showed a young man and a woman sitting on a park bench, laughing. The man was Dante, 20 years younger, his face free of scars and burden. The woman was Declan. Dante's heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. Declan had died in a car fire 19 years ago. It was the event that turned him from a street soldier into the surgeon. He had buried her. He had mourned her every day since, but he had never seen this photo before. And written across the bottom of the photo in thick red marker were 3 words. "She isn't dead." Dante scrambled backward, gasping for air, sliding on the wet pavement. He looked up, wild-eyed. Russo ran over, breaking protocol. "Boss, what is it? A bomb?" Dante couldn't speak. He stared at the SUV as if it were a tomb that had just cracked open. He looked around for the girl. "Where is she?" Dante roared, scrambling to his feet. "The girl! Where is she?" Russo looked around, confused. The street was empty. The rain fell harder, blurring the neon signs. "She was right there, boss. I took my eyes off her for a second when you went down." Dante spun in a circle. The scruffy girl with the blonde hair and the stuffed rabbit was gone, vanished into the shadows of Chicago, but she had left something behind. On top of Dante's discarded cashmere coat lay the dirty stuffed rabbit. Dante walked over and picked it up. It smelled of rain and old dust. He turned it over in his hands. There was a zipper on the back of the rabbit. With trembling fingers, Dante unzipped it. Inside, nestled in the stuffing, was a folded piece of paper and a silver locket. Dante knew the locket. He had given it to Declan on their first anniversary. It was supposed to be in the grave with her. He opened the folded paper. It was a handwritten note, but not in a child's handwriting. It was elegant, cursive script. "The girl is the key, Dante. Find her, and you find the truth. But trust no one, not even Russo, especially not Russo." Dante slowly raised his eyes to Dominic Russo, his most loyal lieutenant, the man who had taken a bullet for him last year. Russo was speaking into his radio, organizing a perimeter, looking every bit the concerned soldier. "Trust no one." Dante shoved the note and the locket into his pocket. He picked up the rabbit. "Russo," Dante said, his voice eerily calm. The surgeon was back, but this time he was operating on himself. "Yeah, boss. Bomb squad is 5 minutes out." "Cancel them," Dante said. "It's not a bomb." "What?" "But you said—" "I said cancel them." Dante walked toward the car, his eyes scanning the rooftops, the alleyways. "Get in. You're driving. We're going to the safe house on 4th. "The safe house? Why?" "Because," Dante said, clutching the stuffed rabbit as if it were a grenade, "I think I just found out that my entire life is a forgery, and we need to find that little girl before the Vipers do." As the SUV peeled away into the rainy night, Dante looked in the rearview mirror. He didn't see the city. He saw the ghost of a woman he buried, and a little girl who had just walked out of the shadows to light a match and burn his world down. The hunt was on. The safe house on 4th Street was a fortress disguised as a dilapidated brownstone. The windows were bulletproof polycarbonate, layered with grime. The doors were reinforced steel, plated with oak. Inside, the air was stale, smelling of trapped dust and the metallic tang of adrenaline. Dante Moretti slammed the heavy door shut and locked the 3 deadbolts. He didn't turn on the lights. He moved by the glow of the street lamps filtering through the blinds, pacing the hardwood floor like a caged panther. Dominic Russo stood by the door, his hand still resting on his weapon. "Boss, talk to me." "You're spooked. I haven't seen you spooked since the 2009 war with the Russians." Dante didn't answer immediately. He walked to the kitchen island and placed the stuffed rabbit and the pelican case, which he had cut loose from the SUV's undercarriage before they fled, onto the counter. "I'm not spooked, Dom," Dante said, his voice dropping an octave. "I'm awake." He stared at Russo. They had grown up on the same block. Russo had pulled Dante out of a burning warehouse. Russo was the godfather to Dante's nephew. The note in his pocket burned against his thigh. Especially not Russo. "Check the perimeter," Dante ordered, testing him. "I want to know if we were followed. Use the thermal scopes." Russo frowned, the lines on his forehead deepening. "Thermal? Dante, if it's just street thugs." "Do it." Russo held his gaze for a second too long, then nodded. "You got it." He disappeared up the stairs to the surveillance room. As soon as Russo's footsteps faded, Dante whipped out a pocket knife. He slashed the tape on the black pelican case. He popped the latches. The hiss of the airtight seal breaking sounded like a dying breath in the quiet room. Dante flipped the lid open. Inside, resting on custom-cut foam, wasn't a weapon. It was a life. There was a stack of letters tied with a blue ribbon, a baby's hospital bracelet, and a flash drive. Dante picked up the hospital bracelet. His hands, usually steady enough to stitch a wound in a moving car, were shaking. He read the typed label. Baby girl Moretti. Date of birth, November 14th, 2018. Mother, Declan Jenkins. Father, unknown. Dante felt the floor tilt. 2018. Declan had died in 2005. The math didn't work. The reality didn't work. Unless the woman buried in St. Michael's Cemetery wasn't Declan. He dropped the bracelet and grabbed the letters. He recognized the handwriting instantly. It was Declan's looping, artistic script. He opened the top one. It wasn't dated. "Dante, if you are reading this, I failed to protect her. I stayed dead to keep you both safe, to keep you from the rot that eats your world. But they found me. The Vipers were just the delivery boys. The spider is just the web. The spider sits on the shoulder of the man who signs your checks. Dante stopped reading. The man who signs your checks. That meant the commission, the inner circle. He heard a floorboard creak upstairs. Russo was coming back. Dante quickly shoved the letters and the bracelet back into the case and snapped it shut. He left the flash drive in his pocket. When Russo walked into the kitchen, Dante was pouring a glass of tap water, his face a mask of stone. "Clean," Russo said. "No tales. Street is quiet." He eyed the case. "So? What's in the box? Drugs? Cash?" "Leverage," Dante lied smoothly. "Old blackmail photos of Councilman Miller. Someone trying to buy a favor." Russo's eyes flickered to the case, then back to Dante. "And the girl? The one with the rabbit?" "A courier. Probably a street orphan paid $20. Dante took a sip of water. "But she mentioned a man with a spider tattoo on his neck. Vipers." Russo scoffed. "Vipers. They're bottom feeders. They operate out of the meat-packing district. Why would they be messing with us?" "That's what we're going to ask them," Dante said, setting the glass down with a clatter. "Gear up, Dom. We're going to the Rusty Anchor." Russo hesitated. "Just the two of us? Into Viper territory?" "Boss, we should call the crew. Get a hit squad." "No," Dante said, walking past him toward the weapons locker, hidden behind a false bookshelf. "I don't want a war. I want answers, and I want them tonight." The Rusty Anchor was a dive bar that smelled of stale beer, urine, and bad decisions. It sat on the edge of the industrial district, surrounded by shuttered factories. It was the known headquarters of the Viper Gang, a chaotic group of bikers and drug runners who usually knew their place. Dante and Russo parked the unmarked sedan 2 blocks away. They moved through the shadows, silent as ghosts. Dante wore a long trench coat over his suit. Underneath, he carried a suppressed HKUSP .45. Russo carried a shotgun under his jacket. "Front or back?" Russo whispered. "I'll take the front," Dante said. "You cover the back exit. If anyone runs, put them down, but leave the one with the neck tattoo for me." Russo nodded and melted into the alleyway. Dante waited 10 seconds, then walked to the front door of the bar. The bouncer, a mountain of a man with a beard full of crumbs, stepped forward. "Private party, pal. Beat it." Dante didn't slow down. He didn't speak. He simply stepped inside the bouncer's guard, drove a fist into the man's solar plexus, and as the man doubled over, slammed his knee into the man's nose. The bouncer collapsed without a sound. Dante stepped over him and pushed the doors open. The bar went silent. Conversation stopped. Pool cues paused in midair. 20 pairs of eyes turned to the man in the expensive suit standing in the doorway. "I'm looking for a spider," Dante announced, his voice calm, carrying effortlessly over the low hum of the jukebox. A man at the bar stood up. He was wiry, twitchy, with bad teeth and a jagged scar running down his cheek, but it was the ink on his neck that caught Dante's eye. A black widow spider sitting right on the jugular. "You lost, suit," the man sneered. He pulled a switchblade. "This ain't the Ritz." Dante walked forward. The crowd parted. They sensed the predator in their midst. "You were under my car tonight," Dante said. "You left a package." The man, let's call him Spider, blinked, his bravado faltering for a split second. "I don't know what you're talking about." "You scared a little girl," Dante continued, closing the distance. "And you touched my car." "Get him!" Spider screamed. 3 men charged. Dante moved with the precision that earned him his nickname. He sidestepped a swinging pool cue, grabbing the attacker's arm and snapping the elbow with a sickening crack. He spun, using the screaming man as a shield against a flying beer bottle. He drew his pistol, but didn't fire. Instead, he pistol-whipped the 3rd attacker across the temple, sending him crashing into a table of drinks. It took 6 seconds. 3 men were on the floor. Dante stood before Spider, who was now trembling, the knife shaking in his hand. "Drop it," Dante said. Spider lunged. Dante caught his wrist, twisted it until the knife clattered to the floor, and slammed Spider face first onto the bar top. He pressed the barrel of the suppressor into the back of Spider's neck, right on the tattoo. "Who hired you?" Dante asked. "I don't know. I swear." Spider squealed. Dante thumbed back the hammer. "The girl said you put the box there. You know who gave it to you." "It was a drop. A blind drop," Spider cried, snot running down his face. "Left in a locker at Union Station. Instructions were to zip tie it to your car and scare the kid into warning you. That's all. I swear on my mother." "Who paid you?" "Cash. In the locker." "But—" Spider hesitated. "But what?" Dante pressed the gun harder. "The note. The instructions. They had a seal on them. Wax seal, like in the movies." "What symbol?" "A scale. Like justice scales. But broken." Dante's blood froze. The broken scale. That wasn't a family crest. That was the symbol of the adjudicator. A myth. A fixer who worked for the highest levels of the government and the cartel. A cleaner. "Boss!" Russo's voice boomed from the back entrance. Dante looked up. Russo burst in, shotgun raised. "Clear back here. You got him?" "Yeah," Dante said. He hauled Spider up by his collar. "We're taking him with—" Crack! The front window shattered. A single shot rang out from the rooftop across the street. Spider's head snapped back. A red mist sprayed across Dante's face. The man went limp, dead before he hit the floor. A sniper's bullet through his temple. "Get down!" Dante roared, flipping a heavy oak table. More shots tore through the bar, shredding bottles and wood. The Vipers were screaming, scrambling for cover. This wasn't a gang war. This was a professional hit squad. "We're pinned!" Russo yelled, returning fire blindly with the shotgun. "Sniper on the roof, maybe 2. Dante wiped Spider's blood from his eyes. The lead was dead. But the girl was the only loose end left. "The girl," Dante muttered to himself. "I have to find the girl." He looked at Russo. Was Russo signaling them? Or was he just as pinned down as Dante? "Smoke!" Dante yelled. "Pop the smoke!" Russo grabbed a tactical smoke grenade from his belt, standard issue for Dante's security detail, and rolled it toward the door. Thick white smoke filled the room instantly. "Move!" They scrambled out the back exit, diving into the alleyway just as the bar exploded into flames. Someone had thrown a Molotov cocktail to finish the job. They sprinted to the car, tires screeching as they peeled away. Dante stared out the window at the burning bar. The clue was dead. The enemy was invisible. And somewhere in this city, a 7-year-old girl named Baby Girl Moretti was waiting for her father to save her. The silence in the car was heavy, suffocating. Russo drove with white-knuckled intensity, checking the rearview mirror every 3 seconds. "That was a setup," Russo said, breaking the silence. "They knew we were coming, Dante. How did they know?" Dante cleaned the blood off his face with a handkerchief. "You tell me, Dom." Russo glanced at him, hurt flashing in his eyes. "Don't do that. Don't put that on me. I've taken bullets for you." And tonight, the only guy who knew the truth got his brain painted on my shirt, Dante said coldly. "Just drive." Dante reached into his pocket and fingered the silver locket he had taken from the rabbit. He hadn't shown it to Russo. He opened it carefully, shielding it from Russo's view. Inside was a tiny picture of Declan, but behind the picture, tucked into the casing, was a sliver of paper. He had missed it in the rain. He pulled it out. It was a receipt. St. Jude's Home for Wayward Youth. Dated 3 days ago. Item, backpack, pink. Dante's mind raced. St. Jude's. It was an orphanage in the Lower West Side, a crumbling institution run by nuns who asked no questions. "Change of plans," Dante said. "We aren't going back to the safe house." "Where then?" "Drop me at the corner of 5th and Main." "That's the middle of nowhere, boss. Why?" "Because I need to think," Dante lied. "And I can't think with you breathing down my neck. Go back to the penthouse. Secure the perimeter. Wait for my call." Russo looked like he wanted to argue, but the look in Dante's eyes stopped him. "All right. But keep your radio on." Dante got out at the corner. As soon as Russo's taillights disappeared, Dante hailed a yellow cab. "St. Jude's home," he told the driver, "and step on it." St. Jude's was a Gothic brick building that looked more like a prison than a home. It was 2 a.m. The windows were dark. Dante didn't knock. He picked the lock on the service entrance in under 10 seconds. He moved through the silent hallways, the smell of floor wax and boiled cabbage filling his nose. He found the office. He rifled through the files, using his pen light. Admissions. Recent. He found it. Lily Jenkins. Jenkins. Declan's maiden name. He scanned the file. Arrived 2 weeks ago. Mother deceased. Declan Jenkins. Father unknown. Note: child is mute. Refuses to speak to staff. Room 3, B. Dante moved up the stairs, his heart pounding harder than it had during the shootout. He was about to meet his daughter, a daughter he didn't know existed, a daughter Declan had hidden to save her from his life. He pushed the door to room 3B open. It was a small room with 4 beds. Only one was occupied, a lump under the covers. Dante approached slowly. The floorboard creaked, the lump moved, a head popped up, blonde hair, big terrified blue eyes. It was the girl from the street. She saw him. She didn't scream. She sat up, clutching a pillow. "You came," she whispered. Her voice was raspier than it had been on the street. Dante knelt by the bed. He felt awkward, a monster in a room of innocence. "You left your rabbit," he said softly, holding up the toy. She reached out and took it, hugging it tight. "Mummy said you would bring it. She said if I gave it to you, you would find the map." "The map?" Dante asked. "What map, Lily?" Lily pointed to the rabbit's left ear. "Inside." Dante felt the air. There was something rigid inside. He ripped the seam. A small micro SD card fell into his hand. "She took pictures," Lily whispered, "of the bad men, the men who came to the house before the fire." Dante gripped the card. This was it. The evidence Declan had died for. "Lily," Dante said, his voice choking up. I'm going to get you out of here." "Are you my daddy?" she asked. The question hung in the air, heavy and absolute. Dante looked at her, really looked at her. He saw Declan's chin. He saw his own eyes. "Yes," Dante said, a tear escaping his control. "I'm your daddy." Lily launched herself at him, wrapping her small arms around his neck. Dante froze for a second, then wrapped his arms around her, burying his face in her hair. It smelled of cheap strawberry shampoo. It was the best smell in the world. Crash. The front door of the orphanage was kicked in downstairs. Heavy boots on the stairs, shouting, "Check the rooms, find the girl, leave no witnesses." Dante pulled away, his face hardening. The moment was over. The surgeon was back. "Lily, listen to me," Dante said, grabbing her shoulders. "Do exactly what I say. Can you do that?" She nodded, tears welling up. "Get on my back. Hold on tight. Do not let go, no matter what happens. Close your eyes." He stood up, hoisting her onto his back. She wrapped her legs around his waist and her arms around his neck. Dante drew his gun. He checked the magazine. 12 rounds. There were at least 6 men coming up the stairs. "Ready?" he whispered. "Ready," she squeaked. Dante kicked the door open and stepped into the hallway. 2 men in tactical gear were at the end of the hall. They raised their rifles. Dante fired first. Pop, pop. One man went down. Dante sprinted toward the fire escape at the end of the hall. Bullets chewed up the plaster next to his head. He didn't flinch. He shielded Lily's body with his own as he turned the corner. He kicked the fire escape window out. Glass shattered. Hold on! He leaped out onto the metal grate, the cold wind hitting them. Below in the alley, a black van screeched to a halt. The side door slid open. Dante aimed down, ready to fire, but the man who stepped out wasn't wearing tactical gear. He was wearing a suit. It was Russo. Jump, Russo yelled, looking up at them. Jump, Dante. I got you. Dante hesitated. The note, especially not Russo. Bullets pinged off the metal railing near his hand. The hit squad was climbing through the window behind him. He had no choice. Trust me, Russo screamed, his face desperate. Dante looked at the drop. It was 15 feet. Hang on, Lily. Dante vaulted over the railing, plummeting toward the roof of Russo's van. He landed with a massive thud that knocked the wind out of him, rolling to absorb the impact, cradling Lily against his chest. Go, 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 Dante yelled, sliding off the roof and scrambling into the open side door. Russo slammed on the gas before the door was even closed. Bullets sparked against the armored rear of the van as they sped out of the alley. Dante lay on the floor of the van, gasping for air, clutching his daughter. Russo looked back from the driver's seat. You okay, boss? Dante sat up, checking Lily. She was shaken, but unhurt. Yeah, Dante said, eyeing the back of Russo's head. We're okay. Where to? Russo asked. Dante looked at the SD card in his hand. He looked at Lily. Then he looked at Russo. The docks, Dante said. Warehouse 19. We need to look at what's on this card. And Dominic? Yeah? If you ever lie to me again, Dante said, his voice low and lethal, I'll kill you myself. Russo met his eyes in the rearview mirror. He didn't flinch. I know. As the van disappeared into the night, Dante knew one thing for sure. The war had just begun, and for the first time in 20 years, he had something to lose. Warehouse 19 sat on the edge of the Chicago River, a rusting hulk of corrugated iron and shattered glass. It was Dante's personal archive, a place where he kept the things that didn't exist on paper, unregistered weapons, emergency cash, and dirt on every politician in Illinois. The van skidded inside the loading bay, and Russo hit the button to lower the heavy steel shutter. The moment the metal slammed against the concrete, sealing them in, the tension in the van shifted. It went from the chaotic panic of escape to a cold, suffocating suspicion. Dante didn't holster his gun. Get the laptop, Dante ordered, his voice flat. He turned to Lily, who was shivering in the back seat. Her adrenaline had crashed, leaving her pale and exhausted. It's okay, Dante said, his voice softening only for her. He took off his suit jacket, now ruined with mud and brick dust, and wrapped it around her shoulders. You're safe here, I promise. Lily looked at Russo, then back at Dante. She didn't speak. She just clutched the rabbit tighter. Dante led them into the small office, suspended above the warehouse floor. It was soundproofed, filled with monitors and a single heavy desk. He sat Lily on a leather couch in the corner. She curled up, her eyes heavy, watching them like a hawk. Russo placed a tough book laptop on the desk and booted it up. Dante, we need to talk about what happened back there. The orphanage. They knew exactly which room. They knew you were coming. I know, Dante said. He slotted the micro SD card from the rabbit's ear into the reader. Someone is steering us. Someone is watching every move. And you think it's me? Russo asked, his voice tight. Dante didn't look at him. He stared at the screen as the files loaded. Declan left a note, Dom. She warned me, specifically about you. Russo went silent. The air in the room grew heavy enough to choke on. Declan is dead, Dante. We buried her. Did we? Dante clicked on the first video file. Or did we just bury an empty box? The video player opened. The timestamp was from 3 weeks ago. The angle was low, hidden, likely recorded from a vent or a bookshelf. The image flickered to life. It showed a living room. Declan's living room. Dante stopped breathing. She was older. There were fine lines around her eyes, and her hair was cut short. But it was her. Declan. She was sitting at a table, arguing with a man. The audio was crackly, but audible. You can't keep him in the dark forever, Arthur, Declan was saying. She looked terrified. He has a right to know about Lily. The man, whose back was to the camera, slammed his fist on the table. He is a monster, Declan. The surgeon? You think he plays house? If he finds out, he brings the war to your doorstep. I promised to keep you hidden. That was the deal. The deal is over, Declan screamed. The Vipers. I saw them watching the house. They found us, Arthur. If they found us, that means the Commission knows. The man turned. The camera caught his profile. Dante's blood turned to ice. He knew that face. Everyone in Chicago knew that face. It was Arthur Lakota, the district attorney, the man running on a platform of cleaning up the city, the man Dante had paid off 3 times in the last year to lose evidence. Lakota, Russo whispered, stepping closer to the screen. He's been hiding her for 20 years. Keep watching, Dante commanded. In the video, Lakota grabbed Declan's arm. If the Commission knows, it's because you got sloppy. I told you, no contact with the outside world. Now I have to clean this up. What does that mean? Declan yanked her arm back. It means we move you again. Tonight. Leave the girl. She slows you down. No, Declan backed away. I'm not leaving Lily. Lakota sighed, adjusting his tie. Then you leave me no choice. He pulled a phone from his pocket. Send the team. Burn it down. Make it look like an accident. Declan's eyes went wide. She lunged for the hidden camera. The recording cut to black. Dante stared at the black screen, his hands trembling with a rage so profound it felt like a physical weight. Lakota. The DA. The man who shook Dante's hand at charity galas. He had stolen Dante's wife. He had stolen his daughter's childhood. And then, when it became inconvenient, he had ordered them burned alive. He tried to kill them, Dante whispered. He tried to burn them like garbage. Boss, Russo said urgently. Check the timestamp on the next file. Dante clicked it. It was an audio file, dated yesterday. It was a phone recording. Yes, she's at St. Jude's, a voice said. It was Lakota. The mother is in holding at the Blackwood estate. We're interrogating her. She claims she sent evidence to Moretti. If Moretti has it, he dies. If he doesn't, kill the girl just to be safe. Dante slowly closed the laptop. The room was silent, save for the hum of the hard drive. Dante stood up. He walked over to the window, looking down at the warehouse floor. He adjusted his cufflinks. It was a nervous tic he hadn't had since he was a teenager. Blackwood Estate, Dante said. That's Lakota's private compound up in Lake Forest. Heavily guarded, private security, mercenaries. It's a fortress, Dante, Russo said. We can't just kick in the door. Watch me. Dante, listen to me. Russo grabbed his shoulder. Dante spun, shoving his pistol under Russo's chin. Give me one reason why I shouldn't put a bullet in you right now, Dominic. Declan's note said not to trust you. Maybe you're working for Lakota, too. Maybe you're the one who told them we were at the orphanage. Lily stirred on the couch, whimpering in her sleep. Russo didn't back down. He looked at the gun, then into Dante's eyes. You want to know why she wrote that? Russo said, his voice shaking with emotion. Because 19 years ago, the night she died, I was the one driving the car. Dante froze. What? The car bomb, Russo said, tears welling in his eyes. It was rigged. I found it before she got in. I knew it was going to blow. But the order came from your father, Dante. Dante's gun wavered. My father is dead. He ordered the hit on Declan because she was making you soft. He wanted the surgeon, not a husband. I couldn't let her die. But I couldn't go against your father. He would have killed you too. Russo took a breath. So I helped her fake it. I set the fire. I put a cadaver in the car. I sent her to Lakota because he was the only one powerful enough to hide her from the family. I didn't know Lakota was a monster. I thought I was saving her. Russo gripped Dante's wrist, moving the gun away from his chin. She wrote, "Don't trust Russo because she thinks I'm the one who exiled her. She thinks I did it to punish her. She doesn't know I did it to save you." Dante stared at his friend. The pieces clicked into place. The guilt in Russo's eyes for 20 years. The way Russo never married, never settled down. He was serving a penance. Dante lowered the gun. He holstered it. He walked over to the desk and picked up a heavy tactical shotgun. He racked the slide. "We're going to Lake Forest," Dante said. "It's a suicide mission," Russo said, grabbing an assault rifle from the rack. "No," Dante looked at the sleeping form of his daughter. "It's a family reunion." "And what about the girl?" Russo asked. Dante looked at Lily. "She comes with us. She's safer in the line of fire with me than she is anywhere else in this city." The drive to Lake Forest passed in grim silence. Fog rolled in from the lake, swallowing the road as Dante cut the power to the Blackwood estate with a single phone call. Within minutes, the mansion vanished into darkness. They left the van deep in the woods. Before stepping out, Dante checked Lily's small Kevlar vest one last time. "Stay inside. Lock everything," he told her quietly. "You'll come back, right?" she asked. "I will," he said, though he wasn't sure. Dante and Russo slipped through the trees, scaling the west wall near the guest house. Flashlights swept the fog as guards patrolled. Russo created the opening, 2 shots into a parked Bentley, followed by a flare. Fire erupted, drawing security away. They rushed the rear entrance and breached the kitchen. "Basement," Dante whispered. A charge blew the door open. They descended into concrete corridors and found Vinny, the butcher, waiting by a vault door, grinning behind his submachine gun. Gunfire shattered the silence. Vinny dove for cover, spraying bullets. Russo returned fire while Dante advanced, sliding across the floor. In seconds, it was over. 3 shots ended the fight. "Code," Dante demanded. Vinny only laughed before collapsing. Russo planted explosives on the vault hinges. The blast ripped the door apart. Inside, Declan sat bound to a chair, bruised but alive. "Dante," she whispered. A gun clicked behind her head. Arthur Lakota emerged from the smoke, shaking. "Drop it, I'll kill her!" Dante froze. "It's over, Arthur. I have the files." Lakota paled. "We can deal." "No deals." Declan stomped Lakota's foot. The shot rang out. Lakota fell. Dante rushed forward, cutting her free. She clung to him, sobbing. "I knew you'd come," she whispered. Sirens wailed in the distance. They fled through the woods and reached the van. Lily screamed when she saw her mother. The family reunited as Russo sped away, police lights flooding the estate behind them. For a moment, it felt like victory. Then Declan's voice turned serious. "Lakota wasn't the mastermind," she said, revealing a golden pin. "Someone else is pulling the strings." Dante crushed it in his fist. "Let them try," he said, drawing his family close. "No one touches what's mine." The city of Chicago was waking up, but for Dante, Moretti, the sun rising over the skyline, looked like a countdown clock. The police scanner in the van was screaming. "All units, be advised. Suspects are armed and extremely dangerous. Dante Moretti, Dominic Russo, wanted in connection with the homicide of District Attorney Arthur Lakota. Shoot to kill authorization granted. Dante switched the radio off. The silence that followed was worse. We can't go to the airport, Russo said, his eyes scanning the road for roadblocks. They'll have O'Hare and Midway locked down tighter than a drum. The Coast Guard will be watching the lake. Dante looked at Declan. She was holding a sleeping Lily, stroking her hair with a rhythmic, soothing motion. She looked up at him, her eyes fierce. She wasn't the scared victim in the basement anymore. She was a mother protecting her cub. We need a ghost, Dante said. Turn around. Head to the old airstrip in Joliet. Joliet? Russo frowned. That place has been condemned since the 90s. It's a graveyard for rust buckets. Exactly, Dante said. Old man Silas lives there. Silas? The rum runner? I thought he was dead. He owes me a life, Dante said. Let's hope he's ready to pay up. The airstrip was a desolate stretch of cracked concrete surrounded by tall, dead corn stalks. A rusted hangar sat at the end, looking like it would collapse if the wind blew too hard. Russo drove the battered van into the hangar. Inside, surrounded by piles of scrap metal and engine parts, sat a twin-engine Cessna. It looked old, but the engines were clean, free of dust. A man emerged from the shadows. Silas. He was 70 years old, with skin like leather and oil-stained hands. He racked a shotgun as he walked toward the van. You bring a lot of heat with you, Moretti, Silas grunted, spitting tobacco juice onto the concrete. I can hear the sirens from the highway. Dante stepped out, hands raised. I need a flight, Silas. South. Belize. Silas laughed, a dry, hacking sound. Belize? In this weather? With half the state cops looking for your head? It'll cost you. Name your price, Dante said. I don't want money, Silas said, eyeing the van. Your money is no good. They frozen your accounts 20 minutes ago, surgeon. It's all over the news. Dante cursed internally. The Golden Circle worked fast. They had stripped him of his wealth in less than an hour. Then what? Dante asked. Silas pointed to the watch on Dante's wrist. It was a Patek Philippe, a rare vintage piece worth $250,000. And the ring? Dante looked at his family ring. The signet of the Moretti crime family. It had been passed down for 3 generations. It was the symbol of his power, his history, his identity. Dante pulled the ring off his finger without hesitation. He unclasped the watch. He tossed them both to Silas. Done, Dante said. Get the plane ready. Silas caught them, grinning. Load up. We leave in 10. Dante opened the van door. Let's go. Declan, grab Lily. As they moved toward the plane, the sound of tires crunching on gravel echoed outside. Russo spun around, raising his rifle. Company! 2 black SUVs tore through the cornfield, smashing through the chain-link fence. They weren't police cars. They were unmarked. Mercenaries, Dante growled. Golden Circle. Men in black tactical gear spilled out of the SUVs, taking cover behind the vehicles. Automatic gunfire erupted, pinging off the metal hangar walls. Get in the plane, Dante screamed, pushing Declan and Lily toward the open door of the Cessna. Silas, fire it up! The Cessna's engines coughed, then roared to life. The propellers spun, kicking up dust. Dante and Russo took cover behind a stack of oil drums, returning fire. The mercenaries were advancing, moving with military precision. There's too many of them, Russo yelled, changing magazines. They're going to flank us before that bird gets off the ground. Dante looked at the plane. Declan was pulling Lily inside. Silas was revving the engines, shouting for them to hurry. Dante looked at the SUVs. They were blocking the runway exit. They're blocking the path, Dante realized. Even if we get on, we can't take off. They'll clip the wings." Russo looked at the SUVs, then at the van they had arrived in. It was a heavy, armored transport. He looked at Dante. A sad, resigned smile crossed his face. "Go," Russo said. "What?" Dante stared at him. "Get on the plane, boss," Russo said. "I'll move the SUVs." "Dom, no, that's a one-way trip." Russo gripped Dante's shoulder. "I told you, Dante, I owe you. For Declan. For the 20 years I let you think she was dead. Let me balance the ledger." "Dom, go be a father." Russo shoved him toward the plane. "Get out of here." Russo broke cover, sprinting toward the van. Bullets kicked up dust around his feet, but he didn't stop. He dove into the driver's seat. Dante watched, his heart breaking, as Russo revved the engine. "Cover him," Dante roared, firing his pistol wildly at the mercenaries to suppress their fire. Russo slammed the van into gear. He floored it. The heavy armored vehicle roared toward the two black SUVs blocking the runway. Russo didn't brake. Crash. The collision was massive. The van plowed into the SUVs, smashing them aside like toys, clearing the runway. The force of the impact flipped one of the mercenary vehicles. "Now go!" Silas screamed from the cockpit. Dante holstered his gun and sprinted for the plane. He jumped onto the wing and scrambled inside, pulling the door shut. "Go! Go!" The Cessna lurched forward, gaining speed. Dante looked out the window. Down on the tarmac, steam was pouring from the wrecked van. The mercenaries were closing in on it, guns raised. The driver's door of the van opened. Dominic Russo stumbled out, blood running down his face. He was unarmed. He couldn't stand. He looked up at the plane speeding down the runway. He raised a hand in a salute. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a detonator. "For the family," Russo whispered. The remaining C4 in the van, the explosives they hadn't used at the estate, detonated. A massive fireball engulfed the runway, consuming the mercenaries, the SUVs, and Dominic Russo. The shockwave buffeted the plane just as it lifted off the ground. Dante watched the fire burn below. He pressed his hand against the cold glass. "Goodbye, brother," he whispered. He felt a small hand on his arm. Lily was looking at him, tears in her eyes. "Is Uncle Dom coming?" Dante pulled her into his lap, wrapping his arms around her and Declan. He couldn't speak. He just shook his head. The plane banked through the clouds, leaving Chicago and the life of the surgeon burning in the distance. 1 year later. The sun in Tuscany is different than the sun in Chicago. It's warmer. It smells of cypress and sea salt, not asphalt and gunpowder. A man sat on the terrace of a small vineyard cottage overlooking the rolling hills. His hands, once stained with the grime of the city, were now stained with garden soil. He wore a linen shirt and canvas trousers. He wasn't called Dante Moretti anymore. To the locals in the village of Montepulciano, he was simply Signor Rossini, the quiet American who made excellent olive oil. The scar on his eyebrow was still there, but the hardness in his eyes had softened. The ice had melted. "Daddy, watch this!" Dante looked up. Lily, now 8 years old and taller, was running through the rows of grapevines. She was chasing a golden retriever puppy. She was laughing, a loud, uninhibited sound that filled the valley. Declan walked out onto the terrace carrying a tray of lemonade. She looked healthy. The shadows under her eyes were gone. She set the tray down and sat on the arm of Dante's chair, running her fingers through his hair. "She's happy," Declan said softly. "We're safe," Dante replied, taking her hand. "Finally." "Do you miss it?" she asked. "The power. The city?" Dante looked at his watch. It was a cheap plastic digital watch, a gift from Lily for his birthday. He wouldn't trade it for 1,000 Patek Philippes. "I miss Dom," Dante said. "Every day." "He gave us this," Declan said. He bought this piece. Dante nodded. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the only thing he had kept from his old life, the silver locket. Inside, he had added a new picture. It was the three of them, Dante, Declan, and Lily, taken on the day they arrived in Italy. "The surgeon is dead, Declan," Dante said, looking out at his daughter. "He died on that runway in Joliet." "And who is this?" Declan asked, kissing his forehead. "This is just a man," Dante smiled, pulling her into his lap. "A man who checks under his car for toys, not bombs." Suddenly, Lily came running up to the terrace, breathless and giggling. "Daddy! Daddy! Look what I found!" Dante tensed for a microsecond. Old habits died hard. "What is it, sweetie?" She held out her hand. Resting on her palm was a small green caterpillar. "It was on the tractor," she said. "I saved it." Dante let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He looked at the bug, then at his daughter. "Good job, Lily," he said. "You're a protector, just like your mum. Can we keep him?" "We can let him live in the garden," Dante said. "Everything grows better here." As Lily ran back to release the caterpillar, Dante looked at the horizon. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. The golden circle was still out there somewhere. The world was still a dangerous place. But here, on this hill, they were untouchable. Dante Moretti had spent his life taking things apart. Now, finally, he had built something that would last. He picked up his glass of lemonade, toasted the empty chair beside him, where a ghost might sit, and drank to the future. And that is the story of the surgeon, the little girl, and the warning that changed everything. It's a story about how the hardest armor to break is the one we build around our own hearts, and how sometimes redemption comes from the places we least expect, like a dirty stuffed rabbit, or a loyal friend who makes the ultimate sacrifice. I want to know what you think in the comments below. Do you think Dominic Russo did the right thing by hiding Declan for 20 years? Was it a betrayal, or was it the ultimate act of loyalty to save Dante's soul? I read every comment, and I'd love to see your debate on this. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and lets me know you want more stories like this. And if you haven't already, subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. There are darker secrets in the underworld and plenty more stories to tell. Until next time, check your corners and stay safe.